Roy Dilley paid $340 for a new stove in the fall of 1977, and it near about burned his house down. He had a place up on Droop Mountain in this county, 4 rooms and a sleeping porch. For 30 years he'd heated it with an old open front stove that ate wood like a mule and threw heat you could feel from the kitchen door. Then the oil went short, and the store in town started stacking these new airtight boxes along the front wall. Sealed door, gasket rope, a little cast damper on the pipe you could close down to a slit. The man selling them said the same thing to every fellow who walked in. Shut her down at night, she'll hold till morning. Roy did exactly that, every night, 4 months running. And by January he was hauling wood twice as often as he ever had with the old stove, and sitting in a house that never got warm past the middle of the front room. Then one night in February, the chimney went up. Sounded like a freight train in the wall. His boy got him out, and the fire company got there in time, and Roy stood in the yard in his union suit watching sparks come off his own roof. Now here's the thing, friend. There was nothing wrong with that stove. It was a better stove than the one it replaced. Roy lost that winter and near lost that house, doing precisely what he was told to do. Today, most Americans will spend $900 a year on heat and never once put a hand on the pipe to see how hot it's running. We buy the appliance and skip the skill. That's the whole trade we made. But here's the twist. The record now says the wood didn't get worse, and the stoves didn't get worse. What went away was the operating knowledge, the small handful of things a man learned standing next to his father, none of which fit in a manual, and all of which are worth about a cord of wood a winter. There's a name for that knowledge. Enoch called it running the box. Not lighting a fire. Any fool can light a fire. Running it. Before I get into it, a word, and I won't come back to it. I've been writing this down, all of it, the way Enoch had it, in plain language with the numbers in it, and it's at a place I'll leave in the description. It's the long version of what you're about to hear. If you'd rather just watch, watch. That's fine by me. All right, back to it. I'm Harlan Sawyer. 71 years old, 5th generation on Sawyer Ridge in Pocahontas County, West Virginia. My people came in on foot in 1847 and never left it. I went in the woods at 14 in 1969 and came out in 2011. Near everything I'm about to show you, my grandfather Enoch wrote down in a scaler's tally book he carried in his coat from 1931 until the winter he died. He made me promise it wouldn't go in the ground with him. This is me keeping that promise. There's 6 mistakes in here. 5 of them you'll recognize the second I say them, and you'll fix them Saturday. The 6th one is the one that does the real work, and it's the one nobody will tell you, because it looks like laziness and it looks like dirt. We'll get there. 1 buried skill back into daylight a week. That's the whole idea here. If that's worth something to you, you know what to do. Mistake 1, trusting the calendar instead of the wood. Every man who burns wood will tell you his wood is seasoned. Most of them are wrong, and it isn't their fault. A fellow sells you a load in October and says it's seasoned, and there's no law that says what that word means. 3 checks, and you can do all 3 standing in your own woodshed. Weight. 2 pieces of the same size, same species. 1 dry one, green. The dry one comes up in your hand like it's hollow. Look. Dry hardwood cracks out from the heart to the bark in a star, and the bark comes loose. Green wood is smooth on the end and holds its bark tight. Sound. Knock 2 pieces together. Dry rings. Green thuds. Weight, look, sound. Every load, every time. The EPA's BurnWise program puts the number at 20% moisture or under. That's the modern side confirming in writing what the old side already knew. Enoch just said it different. He said if it's still drinking, it can't burn. Here's the failure mode. Water doesn't just refuse to burn, it steals. Every pound of water in that log takes heat out of your firebox to boil it off and sends it up the pipe as steam. You paid for that log, and you're using a third of it to make fog. Do this today. $20 gets you a moisture meter. Split a piece, test the fresh inside face, not the weathered outside. That's it. That's the whole test. And run the arithmetic on it once because it'll change how you buy. A cord of seasoned hardwood in this country runs $250, $300 now. Enoch bought one delivered in 1948 for $6. If a third of what you're hauling in is water, then out of every 3 cords you paid for, one of them never made heat. It made steam and it made creosote, and it went out the top of your house. That's $80, $90 a cord you are handing over for fog. Mistake 2, and this is the one that got Roy. Damping her down for the long burn. It works, in the sense that the wood is still there in the morning. It works the same way starving works. You close the air, the fire drops out of flame and down into a smolder. And a smoldering fire is a fire that has quit converting wood into heat and started converting wood into smoke. That smoke is fuel, unburned fuel, going up a cool pipe, condensing on the way. That's creosote. The Chimney Safety Institute of America is plain about it. Cool flue plus unburned gas is how you make the glaze that catches fire. Now I'll say the fair thing here because there's a man out there getting ready to type it at me, and he's going to be right. If you're running a newer stove with a catalytic combustor in it, the rule bends. That catalyst lights the smoke off at a temperature where an old box would only be making tar, and a long, low burn on one of those is precisely the thing it was built to do. If that's your stove, read the manual it came with and run the temperature it tells you to run. But if what you've got is an airtight from before 1988, with nothing in it but a firebox and a damper on the pipe, and that is most of the stoves in most of the houses watching this, then everything I just said stands, every word of it. So you get charged twice. Less heat in the house, and a chimney filling up with something that burns at 2,000 degrees. Failure mode looks like this. You wake at 5 and there's coals, so you tell yourself it worked. Meanwhile, the thermostat says 61, and you're hauling another armload. Do this today. $30. Magnetic stovepipe thermometer. Stick it on the single wall pipe about 18 inches above the stove. There's a band marked on the face. Stay in it. Below it, you're making creosote. Above it, you're throwing money out the chimney. You will learn more about your stove in 1 week with that thermometer than in 10 years without it. Now, nobody outlawed your damper. They sold you one. And in 1973, when the oil went short, they sold 2 million of those airtight stoves into houses like Roy's. And every man behind every counter said the same 6 words about shutting her down at night. Chimney fires went up right along with the sales. By 1988, the EPA was writing rules about it. Not a conspiracy, partner, just a thing everybody believed and nobody checked. And let me say this plain because it matters. If you've been damping your stove down every night for 30 years, that's not on you. That is what you were taught by people who meant well. Mistake 3, lighting into a cold chimney. A chimney doesn't pull because it's a tube. It pulls because the air inside it is hotter and lighter than the air outside. Cold chimney, and especially a chimney running up an outside wall, has a plug of cold, heavy air sitting in it. Strike a match under that and the smoke has nowhere to go but into your living room. Do this today, 2 ways, both free. First, roll a sheet of newspaper into a torch, light it, hold it up in the throat of the stove for 15 seconds. You'll hear it when the draft turns over. The sound goes from nothing to a soft pull. Second, build it upside down. Big splits on the bottom, smaller on top of them, kindling above that, your starter at the very top. It lights down instead of up, warms the flue first, and it doesn't need poking. The EPA recommends that top-down lay in writing, and it's the same way Enoch laid a fire in a cold camp. Mistake 4. Loading loose and leaving your coals scattered. 3 splits thrown in crisscross with air all around them will flame up pretty and be gone in 40 minutes. Wood burns off its surface. More gaps means more surface means faster. Packet. Splits laid tight against one another, one direction, so the fire has to work in from the outside of the load. And before you put a stick in, take a poker and rake every coal you've got forward, toward where the air comes in. Coals against the air inlet relight a load in 2 minutes. Coals shoved to the back are just warm gravel. I did that wrong the first fall Enoch let me lay in the wood alone. 14 years old, house down to 58 by morning, and I'd used near twice the wood he would have. He didn't holler. He never hollered. He come in, looked in the box, and said, "You built it to look at, boy. Build it to work." Mistake 5. Trying to move hot air. Everybody with a wood stove eventually sticks a fan on top of it or in the doorway, blowing the heat toward the cold room. And it does almost nothing, and here's why. Hot air is already going where it wants to go, which is up and out along the ceiling. Pushing on it doesn't help. You move the cold instead. Put a small fan on the floor in the doorway of the cold room, pointed at the stove, low and blowing toward the heat. You're pushing the cold, heavy air along the floor into the stove room, and the hot air comes back at you along the ceiling to take its place. Same fan, turn it around. That's the whole fix, and it costs nothing. Fine, believe that if you want. Or spend $400 on a heat-powered ducting kit and find out. Now, the 6th one. Stop cleaning out your firebox. I mean it. Most people shovel the box down to bare metal every few days because it feels like housekeeping. That bare steel or that fire brick underneath your coals is a heat sink. It pulls warmth straight down out of the coal bed, which is the part of the fire doing your actual heating. Leave an inch of ash on the floor of that box. 1 inch, level, front to back. Ash is one of the better insulators you have got, and it's free, and it's already in there. That inch holds the coal bed hot overnight, so a load at 10 at night still has live coals at 6 in the morning. You will notice it the first night. Think about what a coal bed actually is. It is not a pile of leftovers. It is the hottest, densest, longest burning part of anything happening in that box. It is charcoal, and charcoal is what the fire spent 3 hours making out of your wood. Every bit of heat you let drain out of it into cold steel is heat you already paid for twice, once when you bought the log, and once when the fire worked to make it. Enoch's camp stove had a good 2 inches in the bottom of it all winter, and I never once saw him take a shovel to it before March. I thought that was because he was old and it was cold out. It wasn't. He had a name for the bare floor of a firebox. He called it the sink, and he meant the kind you pour something down. So here's the honest shape of it. Nobody hid this from you. It sat in plain print in the back of a manual nobody reads, and it lost out to a habit, the habit of a clean box looking like a job well done. Not a conspiracy partner, just that tidy feels like competent, and in a wood stove it isn't. Go read the manual that came with your stove. A good many of them say to maintain a small ash bed, right there in print, and I would bet you a cord of oak nobody ever told you that out loud. It didn't get hidden. It just doesn't sell anything, so nobody says it. Take out the excess when it gets up to where it's crowding your air inlet, never sooner. And when you do, steel pail, metal lid, set outside on dirt or concrete, not on the porch boards. Coals live in ash for days. I'm not your fire marshal. Get your chimney looked at every year by somebody who does it for a living, and if your appliance came with instructions, follow those too. This isn't either or. So, Roy Dilley, in February of 1977. When the sweep came out after, he pulled better than a 1/4 inch of hard black glaze out of that flue. 4 months, that's all it took. And every bit of it came from Roy doing the one thing the man at the store told him to do, every single night, on the best stove he ever owned. It wasn't the stove, friend. It was 6 words nobody ever thought to check. Here it is in order. Test the wood. Don't trust the word. Wait, look, sound, and 20% or under. Never damper into a smolder. Put a thermometer on the pipe and stay in the band. Warm the flue before you light, and build it top down. Pack the load tight and rake your coals to the front. Turn the fan around. Move the cold, not the hot. And leave an inch of ash on the floor of the box. 6 things. Nothing to buy but a meter and a thermometer, $50 the pair, and you will burn less wood this winter than you burned last winter in a colder house. Your granddad knew all of this, every bit of it. Somebody just never got the chance to hand it down to you. That's what I was here for. Tell me down below, did your people have a name for the night fire? Banking, holding, keeping? And did anybody in your house ever say to leave the ash, or were you raised shoveling it out like mine was? Every holler did this a little different, and the story that gets the most comments down there is the one I go deep on next. Next time I want to talk about the wood pile itself. There's a way of stacking wood that costs you nothing but a couple of scrap boards, and it will dry a load in one summer that would otherwise take 2. And I'll tell you the year they quit teaching it and what got sold in its place. This isn't a lifestyle channel. It's a library. Old, dusty, full of books somebody hoped you'd never open. Stack it dry, friend. It keeps.